Well, you have to learn to let go. It's kind of empowering to let go, but you want to let go to people that you trust no more than you. And part of it is accepting that you know less about the individual expertise that those people have than they do, because they have the qualifications. You know, our finance director is an accountant. I'm not an accountant. So she knows lots more about tax. So I feel more confident with her doing the tax. It's like other parts of your life. You know, you go to the doctor because they know more about being a doctor. You go to the mechanic and don't tell them how to fix your car.
Welcome to the Growth Trust podcast series, focusing on issues and challenges facing many small and medium business enterprises which play such a vital role in the Australian economy. Small businesses contribute more than $500 billion to the local economy, equivalent to a third of the nation's GDP. Here at the Growth Trust podcast, we aim to pass on critical knowledge, skills and values, enabling those watching or listening to take their company to the next level. This podcast is brought to you by the Australian Centre for Business Growth, which was established by the University of South Australia almost a decade ago. Over that time, the Centre's delivered world-class business growth programs, providing business owners, CEOs, managing directors, and their executive team members with the knowledge and skills needed to grow their companies. The topic today, why caring for yourself matters to your company. Let's face it, if you're the reason the company got off the ground in the first place, then you're one of its most vital assets, and you need to be in the best physical, mental and emotional shape. That's why the Centre's Director Ryan Williams and I have drawn on the experience and expertise of Duane Rivett, the co-founder of Fivecast. Fivecast is a world-leading provider of digital intelligence solutions. The company prides itself on enabling public and private organisations to explore masses of data and to use it effectively. It's all about solving the most complex intelligence challenges. But for many founders, the other challenge is managing their own time and their own physical, mental and emotional well-being, which is the topic we'll explore today. Well, firstly, Duane, tell us about Fivecast and the services it offers.
Yeah, sure. So Fivecast, our mission is enabling a safer world. So we are a world-leading provider of digital intelligence solutions. And it's all about protecting our communities. So in a nutshell, we produce software. So it's cloud-based software. We sell it into the sort of national security sector, border protection sector. And what the software does is it collects information from the surface, deep and dark web. And then we apply AI-enabled analytics to that information to help people that work in national security agencies, help them find information, help them make decisions. And it's all about creating this safer world, you know, stopping things like human trafficking, people trafficking, wildlife smuggling, terrorism, etc.
So say, for example, a terrorist cell operating, It would be sucking up information about who these people are communicating with,
Correct.
What they're communicating about, and then alerting people within our police agencies and that area to do something about it.
Exactly. So think about the events in January 6th in the US. You know, there's people that are on these dark blogs on the internet and they're talking about, you know, what they're going to do. So national security agencies can listen to that chatter and find out who's in the network, who might be connected, and use the AI to actually filter through a lot of the information. The problem is online, you have to just think about the sheer volume. You have to think about the variety of the information. So it's not just text, it's images, it's videos, it's connections, it's reactions. It's on a multitude of different platforms. Some, you know, most of which most people haven't even heard of because these people aren't on the mainstream platforms.
Yep.
They're on more fringe platforms that you or I might not frequent. And then they can use that information to filter through the large amount of memes, images, etc., to find the critical piece of information they're looking for or find out who's in the network. And they basically use that to make decisions. So
and Fivecast came out of South Australia.
We did exactly.
So how did you get it up and running? How did you get into this stuff?
Well, I applied for a job and I got a job. My background is in startup companies and commercialization.
Yep.
So I got a job as a commercialization manager for a CRC. It was the Data to Decision CRC. And the Data to Decision, I'll call it D2D CRC for short. So the D2D CRC was a CRC that brought together pretty much all of Australia's national security agencies, border agency, Australian Federal Police, state-based police forces. And it was all about solving the big data challenges that face that sector. Mm-hmm. So we brought together universities. I think we had 8 to 10 universities. So people working in computer science, engineering, maths. We brought together industry, and we also brought together the end stakeholders who were wanting to use this type of technology. The CRC ran for about 5 years. So it ran from mid-14 to mid-19. And we sort of formed the company inside the CRC. So we founded the company in 2017, midway through the CRC. And then the CRC was winding up in mid-2019, which is when we formed Fivecast. Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, when we spun out Fivecast out of the CRC. We had to stand on our own 2 feet. So I sometimes liken it to teenagers living with our parents. You know, we all the bills were paid for and our salaries were paid for, and we had a time to kind of get the company off the ground.
Was done. There was a warm meal waiting in the evenings.
Yeah. There was clean clothes sat on the end of my bed.
Yeah.
And we had this kind of like move out date, and our move out date was 1st July 2019. So one of my first jobs in the CRC was getting some money into the business, because I think we had about 6 weeks of payroll in the bank. We were very early days. Our revenue was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we had about 16 people. So we raised $4 million from Main Sequence Ventures and the South Australian Venture Capital Fund. And that was kind of our kickstart into the next phase. So,
which is a great way to segue into what we want to talk about today, because this sounds all very stressful. You're involved in a cutting-edge business. You have to stay abreast of new and rapid developments in artificial intelligence. Does it take its toll? How do you switch off?
It's funny. I don't know if I do switch off from that stuff. I think I'm a bit of a science nerd and a business nerd at heart. You know, I don't really read fiction books. You know, I sort of listen to podcasts. I listen to the Washington Post. I'm interested in the latest in AI and tech, and I think I'd be following it. And you know, on top of all the AI stuff, I also follow all these space things and gravitational waves and all that sort of stuff. So I think also working in that sort of sector, working in the national security sector, and it has a good hook to it. You know, you kind of feel like you're doing positive work, keeping communities safe. And so, you know, I did live in the US for a couple of years when we were building the company, and I sort of got a bit addicted to US politics because, of course, Trump at the time.
Yep.
You know, when I was living in the US, there was the Black Lives Matter protests, there was January 6th, there was the impeachments, there was, you know, the election. So it was quite an interesting time, and I kind of got addicted to following that.
How did you turn off then? Because today's podcast is really about this notion of you being a key asset for this company. You've got to look after yourself. Yep. How did you do that?
I think turning off is about compartmentalization. And I think, you know, you hear about people working crazy hours. I don't work crazy hours. I do long days. I start early because we have, you know, a US business, we have a UK business. So there's kind of early morning meetings, there's evening meetings. But when I'm off, I'm kind of off. You know, I run, you know, I spend time with the family, and I use those times to switch off.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because I'm busy, I have to compartmentalize things in little short grabs. I used to go on longer runs and longer bike rides, and, you know, half of Sunday I was out on the bike, and I kind of don't do that anymore.
Do you find that when you compartmentalize like that, do you have a routine or a trigger behavior or something that allows you to get present? I was listening to one of the stars of women's footy here in South Australia talk at a conference recently, and she was talking about how when I get home and I'm with family, I'll spend a couple of minutes outside in the yard just staring down at my feet and remembering where I'm standing and what I'm here to do, so that when I walk in the door, I'm present for the kids.
Yeah.
So this is a way to kind of break myself. Do you have a routine that you use?
I don't think I have a ritual, no. But I also don't feel overly stressed at work either. Yeah. Only because, you know, and you know, I feel like we've been through the business growth course, and I feel that when you have a plan and when you hire good people and they're empowered to do their job, and you feel that, you know, I sometimes think about, like, for example, we have a US office. So I went over in 2019 to set up a US office. We have 17 people in the US, and it's a bit like the elves and the shoemaker, if you know the analogy, that we kind of go to bed and they work overnight, and then you get up in the morning to 50 odd emails and, hey, we've just won this deal or won that deal. And when you hire good people and you empower them and you have a plan, we've been through the course, we have a 3-year plan, we have an operational plan, we set OKRs, objectives and key results for the business. We then assign them to people. So we kind of have our roadmap of where we're going. We know what our targets are. We have regular meetings, and you empower people to go and do, and then you kind of just trust those people to do. Because when you start a business, you start doing everything kind of in a small percentage of your time, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of like marketing, right? So when Brenton, I work really closely with our CEO, Brenton, and when we were starting the business, we sort of have a technical side of the business. So there are 4 founders in the business, and we have 2 technical founders that take care of the product and deployment and IT and all those sorts of things. And Brenton and I were on the business side. We were kind of the sales team, marketing team, finance team, everything. And you spend packets of your time on marketing, and marketing might mean, we won an award. We do a LinkedIn post once every 6 months. And then we hired a director of marketing who is a marketing professional who actually knows a lot more about marketing than I do about marketing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And you empower them and say, hey, let's set some reasonable goals here. And then you can kind of let them go. And now our marketing team's about 8 people worldwide. Yeah. We have about 6 in Adelaide. We have.
So part of it, what the course does is give you the skills to handball some of this stuff. Yeah. Well, and I would imagine you'd be a fairly driven sort of person if you work in this space. Part of the problem is occasionally not being able to let go. You have to learn to let go.
You have to learn to let go. It's kind of empowering to let go, but you want to let go to people that you trust know more than you. And part of it is accepting that you know less about the individual expertise that those people have than they do, because they have the qualifications. Our finance director is an accountant. I'm not an accountant. So she knows lots more about tax. So I feel more confident with her doing the tax. It's like other parts of your life. You go to the doctor because they know more about being a doctor. You go to the mechanic and don't tell them how to fix your car. You can sort of say, I'll go to the mechanic and they can fix it, and then it's fixed. And that's, I think, my attitude to the business. You hire good people, you set a plan, and then you empower them to deliver, and then you can kind of.
But in the absence of that for a founder, if you haven't got the plan, or you're not yet at that space where you have sufficient cash generation to be able to hire the adequate people, you're just going to create a whole world of stress for yourself because you're going to be, like playing whack-a-mole. As a problem comes up, you beat that one down and 3 others are cropped up over here. You just kind of have to keep rolling with those punches. Yeah, I know that sort of early stage founder's journey of.
So Ryan, then the business growth course, it obviously helped you out significantly. How'd you set these things up? What were the parameters that you sort of set in train to make sure that you look after the mental, physical, and emotional well-being of people who start their own business?
We've got a whole chunk of content related specifically to this. So understanding yourself, getting through that journey of self-discovery, of understanding what you're good at, what you aren't good at, framing the question. So we're not going to do the journey of discovery and identify what Duane's good or bad at, but what we are going to do is provide you a set of models and frame some questions to you that help you learn that piece about yourself. And so as you start to recognize, there's the obvious things like I'm not an accountant, like yourself. Yeah. And so, you get a good accountant on board, or I'm not a lawyer, so I get a good lawyer on board. But there's the softer stuff around, I was recently sitting at a lunch table with an entrepreneur next to me who runs an IT firm, not in the software space. They do a lot of digital transformation work. Really smart guy. And he's just sort of gotten to the realization that actually he shouldn't be the CEO because those components of being the flag bearer for the organization, doing the press interviews, doing all the big clients, it's not what he likes doing. Yeah, he's not comfortable doing that stuff. And he sort of, I can find somebody that's much more comfortable doing this work, and I can stay engaged on the technical stuff that I love. That doesn't mean that I'm disempowered. It's about recognizing a different way to skin. Because he was telling me, like, waking up in cold sweats because I got to do a presentation tomorrow morning, and he's quite a shy guy. And so I don't want to live like that. So let me get somebody on board. So the program will help. We have a section where we talk about those sorts of things around self-discovery, and we do talk about, for different people, the way that we decompress varies.
Yeah.
I'm an ex-musician many years back, and so I still come home and I'll make sure that I'm listening to something that for half an hour or so I can detune the day. And that's how I get present and focused, so that when I walk out of where I listen to music, I'm present and available for my partner and our daughter.
So for you, Duane, you compartmentalize, you go running, you go cycling, but what do you do when the family says, you've been away cycling for half the day to de-stress, and we haven't seen you because you've been 6 months or 6 weeks in the States.
Yeah.
How do you manage that aspect of business that impacts on family?
It is, it's a tricky balance. My wife works full time and she has a stressful, job. She's a senior manager as well. And we have 2 kids, and I think it's about spending the valuable time and focusing. It's the same with the business. You have people off doing things, and then you have your weekly catch up where you focus on marketing or something. And then when you get home, it's like, well, one of my sons, you talked about being a musician. He's 14 and he's starting to learn to play guitar. So we sit down and play guitar. Or one of my other sons, my youngest son, who's 12, he's decided he wants to go running. So we'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go for a run. And then, I signed him up recently for a competitive 5K, and we did it together, and, he got his medal. And I think I sort of compartmentalize it that way. I sort of almost switch from, if you look at my calendar, it's this meeting, this meeting, this meeting, this meeting. It's getting into that meeting and saying, okay, we need to cover these 3 things. And then I move to the next one. I think I just switch.
2 questions that occur to me.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
One is this idea of quality versus quantity, and that's something I learned when I was playing guitar, is the amount of practice time. It's not about quantum of practice, it's about the quality of practice that you put in. Mm-hmm. And that sort of leads to, and maybe that's an observation, that leads to a question, which is, how prepared are you for that practice session? So when you have a list of meetings in the day, I'm presuming you spend at least a couple of minutes prior to each, just thinking through what's going to be going on, what do we need to achieve, as opposed to sitting down and going,
tell me.
Well, I find one of the problems that I have occasionally is, my wife will know when I'm not completely engaged in a conversation, or sort of the eyes will dart past her as I'm still thinking about the things that I have to do later. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and she'll zero in on that very quickly. So it's this notion of staying in the moment. Very very quickly being able to put work away and then stay in the moment, but do it in a sincere and honest sort of way. And that's a real skill to turn off and then, give yourself over to your family. How do you do that?
I think it is just focusing on the quality time. I think probably the thing that I probably don't do as much is friends stuff.
Yeah.
That's really bite size. I have one close friend who we buy each other dinner for our birthday once a year, so each. So, and we're about 6 months apart in birthdays. So we at least catch up twice a year, which is fun. And then I often will, even with other sort of friends, I'll say, hey, let's have lunch, but during the week, like I'll book a weekday lunch, so I sort of use my lunch break. So I try to be, I guess, efficient with my time. I also think, I do travel quite a lot, and my wife is very understanding, and she, as I said, works full time and then gets full-time work and full-time kids when I'm away. So I do try to make sure that, say I'm away for a week and I'm back, and I don't, say I'm going to take another week off the back end and have a bit of a holiday for myself. But, we've got a family holiday booked to...
So you map these things out. Also, you mentioned the friend. I find that sort of interesting because I can remember doing some work years ago with an AFL football coach who said that one of the things that he really needed was to have a mentor. Someone who could be separate from the football club, but could ask him the tough questions about where his life was going, and the fearless sort of questions about, are you still enjoying this? Where are you at? Do you have someone like that?
Yeah. So we have an advisor who came on board. So when I moved to the US, I was sort of there by myself, setting up the business, and then sort of built up the team there initially. So we brought a guy on who was he was very senior manager at Citrix for many years, and Apple and Adobe. He's sort of in his 60s and retired. And so we talked every week, and, I'd sort of relay, some of the issues I was having. And he has some sort of great sort of analogies, which are equivalent, probably relevant here. You know, he says sometimes you feel like you're pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yep.
You know, you just push the boulder, and every day you push the boulder and push the boulder, and sometimes the boulder rolls back a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to push it up again. But, you know, his analogy with growing a business is sometimes what happens, you keep pushing that boulder up the hill, and at some point it starts getting easier because you're sort of getting to that crest. And then he said, at some point, the boulder starts rolling away.
Yeah.
And now you almost go from pushing the boulder up the hill to chasing the boulder down the other side of the hill. And his other analogy was like a bit like pushing an oil tanker, you know, and I sometimes think about it a bit like an oil tanker. It's like you've got your shoulder on the oil tanker pushing it away from the dock, and you've got that constant pressure, and it doesn't feel like it's moving. But once it actually starts moving, and then you're like, oh, hold on.
Some momentum behind it.
It's got some momentum. I've been pushing this oil tanker. And sometimes I feel like the business is a bit like an oil tanker, because once you set your goals, you've got your plan for where you're going to go, and it's kind of chugging. You can't be at the wheel of the oil tanker going, all right, I'm going this way, and take a turn.
Left,
But essentially we talked about money in the business. We talked about the people that are running, the business. The oil tanker's kind of chugging along. You might be at the helm of the oil tanker, but you can't grab the wheel and, slam on the brakes, or I don't think oil tankers have brakes, but, it's kind of going, but an oil tanker can also weather rough seas.
Yes.
And you can have some faith. It's not like you're in when you're in a startup, you're in a little dinghy by yourself.
Yeah.
Rowing,
There's a thundercloud coming.
So you have some faith in the thing that you've built.
100%.
Over time.
Yeah.
So to you, Ryan, the growth courses that are offered, they zero into all of these things in terms of family, setting goals, being able to switch off, buy some time for yourself, staying in the moment. How do you set those things up for, say, someone listening to this podcast or watching this podcast today and is thinking about, being swamped and overwhelmed by the thing they've created?
I mean, it's kind of probably a little counterintuitive, or when you frame this for people, it's one of the ways that I'll diagnose whether somebody's serious about it or not. It's an indicator that probably you need some help if you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're waking up 3 a.m. going, I forgot to send the invoice to, or that means that you've got probably too much on the go. You're probably not in control enough to let go, as you would have heard me say before. You probably don't have either a sufficient team or the right people around you. And when you find yourself in that kind of moment, the folks that'll get on and be successful are those that recognize that actually I'm going to have to push the boulder a little harder for the next couple of months while I create a plan to get myself out of this mess.
Yeah.
You have to have a plan.
Yeah. So you have to have maybe a 3-year vision of where you want to be. And do you have to constantly revise why you set this thing up in the first place, its reason for being?
Yeah, I think so. I think you kind of, maybe not on that frequent basis. It depends on the type of organization that you are.
Yeah.
I think that I've been through many organizations where I've invested quite a lot of time in my own space thinking about, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And is this the right thing for me to be doing? Not to think that I want to be out of this organization, but to think about, is this the task or the job that only I can do? Or is there somebody else in the organization that's better skilled or better equipped or has more bandwidth to do this? I could be doing a better job than what I could. Because the more of those things I get off my plate, the more I end up focusing on the stuff where I add value. And that kind of buys a bit of freedom. So again, comes back to planning, preparation. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, personally, I don't believe in the notion of balance. I think this idea that we sell ourselves, that everything's going to be in equilibrium, you're somebody spinning a whole bunch of plates and magically you're going to reach nirvana. I think that's complete rubbish.
Yeah.
I think what you do have is shifting priorities and recognizing and being self-aware enough to say, right now in this moment, my job's more important, or my partner's more important,
Yes.
or my friends are more important, or this podcast is more important. And ensuring that then I dedicate the best game that I've got at that moment in time to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Because nobody gives me back the time. There's I can't hand in a slip at the end and say, thanks, can I have an hour back? I've got as much time as I've got.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure, for me, that I'm doing the best I can in that moment. And that's the kind of the things that we would help chat to folks about, to say, you need to think about what the best allocation of your time is. Part of that process in finding some balance in your life, is going to be about making some time to get a plan in place.
Yeah.
Making some time to say, I don't have to have 3 a.m. cold sweats. What do I do about that? What's my ability to control for that?
Yeah. So I'm interested in this notion of, how you maintain a sense of equilibrium with your family and your work staff, and you grow the business in a way that you feel you have some control of, but you're still handing over to other people so that you're not swamped by all of this work. But I wanted to broaden it a little further and talk about this notion of a social license for a company. Obviously, any company operates with a sense of social license. It's allowed to operate as long as it serves the community's broader interest. To you, Duane, as a boss of your company, how do you go about building this notion of a broader place in the community? Because I dare say the work that you do is absolutely fundamental to our community safety. You must be aware of that. But how do you promote that?
Yeah, so, I think there's the community at large. It's easier for us, I think, because it's not hard for us to turn and just take something abstract and say we're doing this, and that somehow abstract causes some sort of social benefit over here. It's very direct social benefit for us. If we're saying, our customers are, finding a missing person, or they're stopping a terrorist, or they're breaking up a human trafficking prostitution ring and putting the bad guys behind bars. It's
obviously good work.
It's obviously good work. And I find it, we have people that work for us and said, I used to work in remote desktops, and, remote desktops are great and everyone needs them and they're convenient, but, it doesn't kind of get you out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
You don't feel like you're really doing something to help your,
explain
help
that
your
remote desktop. I mean, what is it?
I think it's good for us. Like we, when we sign up customers, our customers are kind of national security agencies that people know. We're stopping, we're not stopping, but we sell a tool that helps our customers stop insider threats, find missing persons, stop wildlife trafficking rings, those sorts of things. But, we have, and the way we promote that is through our marketing. We promote what we do and why we do it.
And that's important for your staff as well.
And well, it is. And when we do our staff survey, we one of the questions we ask is, how much do you kind of resonate with our mission and enabling a safer world?
Yep.
But then we also promote our internal values. We've just gone through a values workshop with our staff and come up with our values. So part of our values is about, trusting, respect others and stepping up to the challenge. So we also try to support our staff internally because, it's like that, the Richard Branson quote, and it's kind of, if you take care of your staff, they go off and live the mission for you, so to speak. Because they're the ones on the front line talking to the customers. I'm often not talking to them.
So that whole point about the culture that you build within an organisation is fundamental to the long-term survival of the corporation, but also to your long-term mental health. In the sense that if people are happy about what they're doing, they feel like they're part of a team with the same values, then we're all on the same page and we can rest a bit easier.
You don't want to be the man, if you know what I mean. Like I'm working for the man, I work in this place and they make me bring my own coffee and you know what I mean? It's so we, a couple of things. So we have a pool table, we have a games room. It's very kind of startup.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if we're a startup anymore, a scale up, we're about 120 people now, and we do community events. And, part of that is about being a competitive employer in the marketplace and hiring the best people and keeping the best people, And
you become an employer of choice?
Yeah. So we recently we came 15th in Australia for the top startups to work for. So, and, we had a high net promoter score. We, one of the things we had was fun. So Friday night we had a hot dog and frozen yogurt party for spring. So we got everyone together, and what we find is if the staff are happy coming to work, we put out fruit and bread and we have a nice coffee machine, and so they can come in. If they haven't had breakfast, they can make themselves some toast and make themselves a coffee, and if it's 3:00 in the afternoon, they can grab a banana, and look, if we're competing especially with other SaaS companies you can sit in your bedroom, right, and work for a SaaS company cutting code, or you can come and work in the office with us, and it's an interactive environment. You play pool, with other people. And the good thing about playing pool with other people is you might play pool with someone from the marketing team and you're in the tech team.
You shoot the breeze.
And then you shoot the breeze, and when you go into a meeting to actually do some work, you have that bond.
Yeah.
So I think you need to try and create a culture, and
if I ask you a question then, so having done the course and having got to this point in your career, if you're going to go back in time to when you first started, and you could speed things up a bit, by latching onto a few key lessons, what would be some of the key lessons that you would want to pass on to a newcomer to setting up a business?
The course has the 3-year planning grid, so we go through that every year. So we're always reforecasting our 3-year plan in every aspect of the business. The reason we set the plan is then we can set goals for people, and we can assign those goals to the functional leads and say, okay, you're the head of marketing. These are our goals for the year. This many LinkedIn followers, very smart goals.
Yep.
And then you assign
realistic ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're specific, measurable, whatever they are. Yeah. Smart. But things like not just make Fivecast a better company,
Yes.
It needs to be real.
It needs to be something real and tangible that people know, and something achievable. And then you empower them to do it, expect them to do it. It's this, we hire, this, I think it's Steve Jobs who said, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. But as a manager, you set the goals, and essentially it becomes their problem. Obviously, ultimately, it's your problem. Like if you say, this is your sales figure and you don't hit it, they don't hit it, you don't hit it. But ultimately it's, well, I'm not there. I'm not in the front line. I'm not sitting in Washington, D.C. right now chasing down sales. That's their problem. They're getting paid their money to go, and they know what their job is, and they can go and do it. So it does relieve some of that. So I think having a goal, having a clear, it's all basic stuff, mission that everyone subscribes to. We've created values which have buy-in from our people. We've tried to create an environment that people want to work in, because people are going to be more productive in an environment that is more conducive. They feel happier and more supported in, and it's not complicated stuff, It's.
I want to pick two things.
Sure,
that.
Go
One
ahead.
is the idea of having mission, having a plan, having direction, having responsibilities. Implicit in that is that you've written it down.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So many of the SMEs that we start working with, you'll encounter a CEO, it's all in their head.
Yeah.
It can't be in your head. You're never going to grow your business if you're not able to encapsulate this in a way that can be articulated. If you can write it down, you can hand it out to other people, and that does two things. One is it's consistent because it's the same bunch of writing every time, versus you talk to me on a Tuesday and what's in my head is this, and you talk to me on a Thursday and what's in my head is that. Yeah. The second thing is, if it's written down, I'm not the only person that can spread it. Yeah. It has, other people can take it away. So implied in that is you really have to crystallize the stuff down.
We have it open to everyone. So, the person in the software engineering department knows what the sales targets are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sort of below that, then what we do is we have these, we call them MMRs, monthly management meetings, where people will come and report on their OKRs, so their goals and their SMART objectives and how they're going. We then have town halls where our CEO will get up and say, and he literally has a slide that's kind of like, these are the 6 things we're doing this year. And it's there every time. And then here's an update on how we're going. We have these things, high fivers and stuff, so people can nominate other people for supporting our values. So they're all tied back to our values. So stepping up to the challenge is one of our values. So I say, Bob over here has stepped up to the challenge because Bob's done X. And so I'm nominating them, and they get a $50 Uber Eats voucher, and they get their picture up at the town hall saying, Bob's been nominated by, Steve over here, and because of doing this thing that aligns to our values. And to sort of reward that and give feedback to the people, because, we talked about the oil tanker, if you're in the engine room, you're not up in the helm. You're not seeing
what's coming up.
You're the stoker just dealing with the engine.
You're sitting there going, why am I doing this?
Where are we at? Are we moving in the right direction?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think how do you buy into the company success is joint success? Because what you don't want is salesperson makes a big sale. Says, I've just won this big sale. I've just won this big sale. No. We've won this big sale.
Yeah.
Because from the person cutting the code who built that feature through and making sure that communication gets back to say, we have won this big sale as a company because the software team has built the software. The DevOps team has deployed the software to the customer. The customer support team has kept that customer, trained the customer, put them through a trial, made them happy.
It's a system,
the sales team, and everyone gets
and the thing about
celebrate
all of that, when you have that team environment and the system working, is that it takes. If we get back to what we were first talking about today, this notion of the mental health of the key asset, the person who established the business in the first place. Yeah. You take the pressure off yourself because you've got the right people. It's devolved to others to help create this environment that will be successful. And then if you do the other things like carve out some time for yourself, compartmentalize, as you say, get out, do a run, keep your family in focus. Yeah. Then you can grow your business and do it without going nuts.
Well, I think that's the key point. I think it's about, and it's not about having some, you see these people, I'm a CEO and I get up at 4:00 in the morning and run 20 miles and blah, and just drink cow juice all day. And do you know what I mean? Like it's not,
like there's
it's
some
all
special,
BS. So I just think it's kind of crazy. Like nothing's rocket science. Like I go running for like half an hour, 45 minutes, right? And I'm not out running marathons, and even if people go and have a walk or walk the dog or something, like it's not ultimately that complicated.
Carving out some me time,
and I sort of have a similar. Like my kids are now teenagers, and like growing a business, a bit like having children. You start with a baby where you kind of like have to wipe its bum and feed it all its food and do everything for it. Now when I've got a 14-year-old, I'm kind of like, wow, you've got a roof over your head, you've got food in the...
But that's a good point.
I mean, you know what I mean?
And if the teenager has been instilled with the right values,
exactly,
and isn't going to be a burden because they're out doing things they shouldn't, they've got some moral compass and they've got some values in place, then you can then hand over to them and they can do their thing, and that's really a good analogy for running a business.
Yeah, you create the support network around them. I'm not saying that our staff are children, by the way. Just It's more the analogy of when you start doing everything yourself. Yeah. Then as you grow up, you have to release the reins. Yeah. My kids are now at a point where they have a mobile phone and they have a wallet and they have a key to the house and they walk to school and they walk home and they can live their own life. They're sort of safe. If they need support, they can ask for it. It's like being a boss. I'm having an issue. My kids are having an issue with each other. You might have to be the referee. It might be the same at work. You might have to step in as the referee every now and then. But I think compartmentalization, I also think that a key thing for our business is we don't just have one founder CEO. We have 4 of us and it is a team. So we have Brenton, who's the CEO, and then I'm sort of COO. So I did the more operational stuff. We have 2 technical founders that do our product and engineering, so deployment, IT, security, etc. And we kind of try and stay in our lane. Like I can't fix the software breaks. I can't fix the software. So why would I worry about it? That's their job to worry about it and get it fixed. It's like if it sort of almost relieves the tension. And we have a team and we work closely together, especially Brenton and I, and I think that helps as well. You're not.
Because I mean, when you're running a business or you're a founder, it can be an incredibly lonely experience.
Yeah,
you were talking earlier about having somebody that you can
mentor
offload to, whether that's a mentor or
someone who can just talk about the toughest things. Yeah,
and if you've got a great team dynamic, that ability to then have that conversation internally. I think the other thing that's really interesting in this idea of managing me, what you've done by extrapolation out into the business by providing a community space for folks to bond in other ways. Absolutely. By providing, food and so on. You're also setting a bunch of parameters that help your staff in general, or people in the organization, manage their own kind of ups and downs. Because we all have days when you wake up and you're like, don't feel like this today. Everybody does. Yeah. And kind of how do you get up and show up and kind of engage and be present? And it is helpful. It's more helpful to walk into an environment that's supportive and provides all of that than to walk into an environment that doesn't.
Absolutely.
The hope is that people feel valued and cared for, and they are. Like our staff, and the advantage for us is we get world-class staff. We have 3 really great universities here. We promote interns coming in. We have intakes of interns every year. We try and grab the best and the brightest out of the universities. We pay them for their internship. It's very competitive, and most of them end up getting jobs with us at the end. The vast majority end up getting jobs with us at the end. And it creates this kind of, not conveyor belt. Conveyor belt sounds a bit sterile, but it creates like a pipeline of good staff coming in. And now some of our grads from 5-6 years ago are now running teams.
Fantastic. So it really grows the business.
It grows the business, it grows their skills, and they're surrounded by people more in my, age group, in their 40s, who have been doing this for 25 years, who have the senior architect roles and the senior software roles, and they can draw upon those experiences. And when an intern, who's a great example, is we'll often grab undergraduate engineers will be typically finishing their last year of study. So instead of working in the cafe or working in the pub, they can work for us 2 days a week. And with the way uni is nowadays, you can do half your courses, watch your lectures online and those sorts of things. They can work 2 days a week for us on real, like their actual job that they're going to do in the future. They don't have to worry about getting a job after uni because they've basically got one lined up for when they graduate, and they're not working off I worked in cafes and bars and those sorts of things during uni, but it gives them practical work experience. And if they choose to go somewhere else, that's kind of up. And some of them do.
But by the sounds of it, Duane, it's a place that they'll definitely want to come and work. Thank you so much for your insights today. I love the analogies about the baby into the child, into the teenager. It's fantastic. And great insights about how you maintain your mental health, that notion of looking after the me as you grow your business. And thank you again to you, Ryan, for your insights today. Wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Ron.
Thanks for your company today. If you'd like more information about the issues raised in this podcast or other related topics, please visit our website at www.centreforbusinessgrowth.com. And a quick reminder that you can always tune in to the Growth Trust podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple or YouTube. Bye for now.